Happiness is not found in comfort, but in conscious effort to grow through discomfort. We often believe that happiness will come when everything around us becomes calm and predictable, when life finally stops testing us. Yet true happiness is not born in ease. It is forged in the moments when we dare to step outside the familiar, when we choose growth over safety, when we decide that our purpose is greater than our pain. Comfort gives temporary relief, but it also numbs the very energy that helps us evolve. Discomfort, on the other hand, is a mirror. It reflects back the parts of ourselves that still need to awaken, heal, and expand. The journey toward happiness begins not in escaping struggle, but in embracing it as the soil from which strength and wisdom grow. We are wired to seek comfort because it feels secure. The mind wants predictability, the heart wants peace, and the body craves safety. Yet, if comfort becomes our only goal, it quietly becomes a cage. We stop taking risks, we stop questioning our limits, and we stop exploring who we could be. Growth requires friction. Every transformation demands some level of discomfort because change itself is unsettling. The seed must crack open for the flower to bloom. The caterpillar must dissolve in darkness before it can become a butterfly. In the same way, we must be willing to experience discomfort if we want to awaken to deeper levels of happiness. Happiness that depends solely on comfort is fragile. The moment life shifts, and it always does, that fragile piece shatters. But the happiness that arises from growth is unshakable because it is rooted in resilience, not in circumstance. When we push ourselves through discomfort, we begin to build emotional muscles that allow us to stay centered even when everything around us falls apart. That kind of happiness is not the result of avoiding pain, it is the reward of transforming it. Discomfort teaches us what comfort cannot. It teaches us humility, patience, and endurance. It reveals our patterns, how we react when life doesn't go our way, how quickly we give up, how deeply we fear failure. It forces us to confront our shadows, the parts of ourselves we would rather not see. Growth happens when we stop running from those shadows and begin to work with them. Every challenge we face carries a message meant to expand our awareness. The pain of disappointment teaches us detachment. The sting of rejection strengthens self-acceptance. The frustration of failure births clarity and direction. In this way, discomfort becomes a silent teacher, guiding us toward inner peace. To grow through discomfort, we must become conscious of it. It's not enough to simply endure pain. We must meet it with awareness. Conscious effort means observing our reactions instead of being ruled by them. It means asking, what is this moment trying to teach me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? That shift in perception transforms suffering into self-discovery. When you engage with your discomfort consciously, you begin to see it not as punishment, but as preparation. Every difficult situation becomes a lesson in strength, empathy, and understanding. The pursuit of comfort can make us passive, while the pursuit of growth makes us alive. Comfort keeps us where we are. Discomfort pulls us toward who we are meant to become. When you challenge yourself, when you start the project that scares you, have the conversation you've been avoiding, face the truth you've been denying, you awaken dormant parts of your spirit. That awakening is where happiness lives. It's not the fleeting joy of pleasure, it's the deep satisfaction of knowing you are evolving, that you are no longer stuck in the same patterns that once held you back. Growth through discomfort also requires trust. You must trust that even when life feels chaotic, something meaningful is unfolding beneath the surface. You must trust that your efforts, though painful now, are shaping you into someone stronger and wiser. Happiness emerges when we stop resisting the natural process of change. The more we resist, the more we suffer. But when we surrender to growth, discomfort loses its power to frighten us. It becomes a companion on the journey rather than an enemy to escape. In our culture, we are often told that happiness is about feeling good all the time. But that illusion keeps us chasing momentary highs and avoiding real transformation. True happiness is not the absence of discomfort. It is the ability to find peace within it. It is knowing that even in difficulty, you are growing closer to your authentic self. It is realizing that life is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to be meaningful. Every step you take outside your comfort zone expands your capacity for joy. When you challenge your limits, your mind opens. When you face your fears, your heart strengthens. When you endure uncertainty, your spirit deepens. Through that process, happiness stops being a distant dream and becomes a natural expression of who you are becoming. Growth through discomfort builds character, and character builds a foundation for lasting joy. There will always be moments of struggle, moments when you question why things must be so hard. But those moments are not signs that you are failing. They are proof that you are alive, that you are evolving, that your spirit is doing the hard work of becoming whole. The conscious effort to grow through discomfort is not a punishment. It is an invitation. It is life calling you to rise beyond what is easy and to discover the freedom that lies on the other side of your fears. It is a reminder that happiness is not found in the absence of challenges, but in the courage to face them with an open heart, a resilient mind, and a willing soul. The soul demands meaning, not ease. And happiness is born when we honor that call. Deep within every human being lies a quiet yearning, a subtle pull towards something greater than comfort or convenience. We often mistake happiness for the smoothness of life, the absence of struggle, the presence of comfort. Yet what the soul truly seeks is not an easy life, but a meaningful one. It craves purpose, growth, and authenticity. When we live without meaning, no amount of comfort can soothe the emptiness inside us. But when our actions align with a deeper sense of purpose, even our struggles begin to make sense. Happiness, in its truest form, is not the product of ease, but the echo of a life lived in harmony with what our soul came here to do. We are conditioned to chase comfort from an early age, to avoid pain, to seek pleasure, to find security in what feels familiar. But ease, while pleasant, often leads to stagnation. The soul withers in complacency. Meaning, however, awakens it. Meaning gives structure to our suffering, direction to our desires, and substance to our joy. It is through meaning that we understand why we endure, why we love, why we strive, and why we keep going, even when life feels unbearably hard. The search for meaning is not always peaceful. It often drags us into the depths of our own doubts and fears. It asks us to question the roles we play, the beliefs we hold, and the lives we've built to please others. But it is in that questioning that we begin to discover who we truly are beneath the noise of expectation. The soul doesn't want the illusion of happiness that comes from temporary pleasures. It wants the kind of happiness that endures, the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing your existence has purpose. When we ignore the call of meaning, life begins to feel empty no matter how comfortable it seems. We fill our days with distractions, achievements, or possessions, but the inner void remains untouched. Comfort without meaning becomes a slow decay, a gentle, almost invisible kind of suffering. You may feel safe, but you won't feel alive. The human spirit was not made for mere survival. It was made for creation, connection, and contribution. It was made to turn struggle into wisdom and chaos into order. Meaning is not something we find, it is something we create. It emerges when we align our actions with our deepest values, when we give our energy to something that transcends the small self. It can be found in love, in service, in art, in learning, in healing, in any act that connects us to something larger than our own comfort. When we live this way, happiness becomes a byproduct, not a goal. It flows naturally from the feeling that our life matters. There are moments when life tests us, when we lose what we thought we needed, when the path ahead disappears, when everything familiar collapses. In those moments, the soul does not ask for ease. It asks for understanding. It asks us to stay present long enough to uncover the meaning hidden within the pain. Every hardship carries a message, every loss a lesson, every ending a quiet invitation to begin again with more awareness. The soul speaks not through comfort, but through challenge. It is in the moments that break us that we discover what truly sustains us. When we choose meaning over ease, we stop resisting the natural rhythm of life. We begin to see that pain and joy are not opposites, but companions. Pain deepens our appreciation for joy, and joy gives us the strength to endure pain. The pursuit of meaning transforms suffering into something sacred, not because it eliminates the pain, but because it gives that pain purpose. We stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is this teaching me? That question alone can change everything. Happiness rooted in meaning is far more enduring than the fleeting happiness of comfort. It does not depend on circumstances, but on connection to self, to others, to life itself. When you live with meaning, every experience, even the painful ones, feels worthwhile. You begin to sense that there is an unseen order guiding you, that every detour has a direction, and that every wound carries wisdom waiting to be uncovered. The soul does not measure life by how easy it was, but by how deeply it was lived. It remembers the times you faced fear and kept going, the moments you loved even when it hurt, the nights you chose faith over despair. Meaning transforms ordinary moments into sacred ones because it infuses them with intention. A simple act, a conversation, a gesture, a breath becomes profound when done with awareness of its purpose. To honor the soul's call for meaning is to live courageously. It means refusing to trade authenticity for approval or passion for security. It means allowing your life to be shaped not by fear of discomfort, but by devotion to truth. It means accepting that real happiness will sometimes come wrapped in uncertainty, that peace will sometimes arise through struggle, and that joy will sometimes coexist with pain. Every soul longs to feel significant, not in a superficial way, but in a spiritual sense. We want to know that our existence counts for something, that our choices ripple outward, that our presence makes a difference. When we live meaningfully, we become participants in life rather than observers. We stop drifting and start directing our energy towards something that matters. That is when the soul begins to glow, not because life is easy, but because it is purposeful. Ease may bring comfort, but meaning brings fulfillment. Comfort may soothe the body, but meaning nourishes the spirit. And in that nourishment, happiness takes root, deep, resilient, and real. It is the kind of happiness that can survive chaos, endure loss, and rise again from despair, because it is not built on circumstance, it is built on purpose. The soul demands meaning, and when we finally honor that demand, we find that happiness was never about avoiding difficulty. It was about embracing the depth of being alive. Light cannot exist without shadow. True joy arises when we accept both within ourselves. Within every human being lives a duality, the part that shines and the part that hides. The world often teaches us to celebrate the light and reject the shadow, to present only the best version of ourselves while burying what feels unworthy or uncomfortable. But the truth is, without the shadow, the light has no meaning. Joy is not born from constant positivity. It emerges from the integration of all that we are, the beautiful, the broken, the courageous, and the afraid. To be whole is not to be pure light, but to embrace the balance between illumination and darkness that makes us human. We spend much of our lives trying to escape the shadow. We run from pain, suppress anger, deny envy, and disguise fear behind smiles. Yet the more we reject these parts of ourselves, the stronger they become. They linger beneath the surface, influencing our actions and emotions in unseen ways. The shadow is not evil, it is simply the unacknowledged self. It carries everything we repress, everything we avoid, and everything we have not yet learned to love. When we bring light to our shadow, we do not destroy it, we transform it. True joy does not come from pretending that darkness doesn't exist. It comes from recognizing that darkness has its purpose. The night teaches the value of mourning. Sorrow deepens our capacity for gratitude. Failure strengthens resilience. Every shadow we face contains a lesson meant to expand our consciousness. When we resist our shadow, we remain divided within ourselves. When we accept it, we begin to move toward wholeness. The journey toward accepting the shadow is not easy because it asks us to confront what we fear most: our vulnerability, our flaws, our contradictions. But in doing so, we reclaim our authenticity. We stop trying to live as an image of perfection and begin to live as a reflection of truth. Perfection isolates us, authenticity connects us. When we embrace both our light and our shadow, we create space for compassion, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. We begin to see that everyone carries their own darkness, that every heart has its hidden pain, that every smile has a story behind it. Light and shadow exist in a sacred relationship. The more light we cultivate, the more shadow we see. Awareness expands our perception of both. When you grow spiritually or emotionally, you do not become free of shadow, you simply become more conscious of it. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to understand it. The moments when we fall, when we fail, when we break, those moments are not signs of weakness, but opportunities to deepen self-awareness. Without those moments, the light of wisdom would never emerge. The shadow often reveals itself through emotion. Anger may point toward boundaries that have been ignored. Jealousy may expose desires that have been suppressed. Fear may highlight the need for faith. Instead of condemning these emotions, we can learn from them. They are messages from the parts of ourselves that long to be seen. When we listen instead of judge, we begin to integrate them into our being. Integration does not mean indulgence, it means acknowledgement. It means saying, this too is part of me, without allowing it to define who you are. True joy arises not when you eliminate pain, but when you find meaning in it. Light without shadow would be flat, lifeless, without contrast. Our struggles give depth to our happiness. Our imperfections make our joy real. When you have suffered and healed, your happiness becomes gentler, more compassionate, more grounded. You no longer chase it, you carry it quietly, knowing it coexists with sorrow. Joy becomes not an escape from pain, but a peaceful acceptance of life's duality. To accept both light and shadow is to live in harmony with reality. Life will always contain both beauty and tragedy, gain and loss, love and grief. The more we resist this truth, the more fragmented we become. But when we open ourselves to the full spectrum of experience, we discover a deeper kind of peace, one that does not depend on circumstances. Acceptance frees us from the illusion of control. It allows us to live authentically, to respond to life as it is rather than as we wish it to be. The shadow also holds tremendous creative power. Many of humanity's greatest works, art, literature, music, were born from pain, loneliness, or inner conflict. The shadow fuels creativity because it carries emotional intensity. When channeled with awareness, that intensity becomes a source of inspiration rather than destruction. Our light gives direction to our shadow's energy, turning chaos into expression, turmoil into truth. The dance between the two is what gives life its richness. Accepting your shadow is an act of courage because it means seeing yourself without disguise. It means acknowledging the envy you feel toward others, the fears you hide behind confidence, the resentment you bury beneath kindness. It means looking into the mirror of your own soul and saying, I see you, all of you. That moment of honesty is liberation. It breaks the chains of denial and self-judgment. It allows you to stand in the middle of your contradictions and still feel worthy of love. The light within us is not diminished by the shadow, it is defined by it. Without shadow, there would be no contrast, no shape, no clarity. Every person you admire has faced their own darkness. Every act of kindness carries a history of pain overcome. Every smile hides a lesson learned the hard way. The shadow does not make us unworthy, it makes us real. When we stop dividing ourselves into good and bad, right and wrong, pure and impure, we begin to experience a deeper form of happiness, one that flows from unity. We no longer waste energy fighting parts of ourselves. We begin to live with integrity where our inner world aligns with our outer expression. In that alignment, we find freedom, and in that freedom, joy naturally arises, not as a fleeting emotion, but as a state of inner balance born from the sacred dance of light and shadow. When life feels unbearable, the challenge is not to escape it, but to find yourself within it. There comes a point in every person's journey when the weight of existence feels too heavy to carry, when pain silences joy, when confusion plows the path forward, when everything familiar dissolves into uncertainty. In those moments, the instinct is to flee, to distract ourselves, to numb the ache, to search for something outside of us that might make the pain disappear. Yet the truth is, no escape will ever bring peace, because what hurts is not just the situation, but our disconnection from ourselves. When life becomes unbearable, it is not a sign that we are broken. It is a call to return inward, to rediscover who we are beyond our suffering. Pain strips away illusions. It removes the comfort of routine and exposes the fragile truths we've avoided. It forces us to confront what we've built our lives upon, whether it's approval, success, control, or love. When those foundations crumble, what remains is the raw essence of being, the part of us untouched by circumstance. This is where the challenge begins, not in fixing life, but in meeting ourselves honestly within it. The unbearable moments become mirrors reflecting what we have neglected or forgotten about our deeper nature. When life hurts, the mind seeks escape routes, distractions, addictions, overthinking, or blame. But every escape leads us further from the source of healing. The path forward is paradoxical. We must go inward, not outward. To find yourself within unbearable pain is to sit with it long enough to hear what it's trying to teach you. It's to stop asking, how do I get out of this? And begin asking, what is this showing me? Pain has a language of its own. It speaks of needs unmet, truths unspoken, and potential unrealized. When we listen, pain transforms from an enemy into a guide. The unbearable often comes when life pushes us toward transformation. It is as if something inside us is trying to die so something new can be born. The ego resists this process because it clings to what is known. It wants certainty, control, and comfort. But growth demands surrender. To find yourself in the midst of unbearable moments is to let go of who you thought you were and make space for who you are becoming. The self that survives deep suffering is always more authentic, more grounded, more compassionate, and more aware. Suffering exposes the layers of identity that we've mistaken for our true self. We say, I am my success, my relationships, my status, my possessions, until life takes them away. Then, in the emptiness that follows, we discover that we are something deeper, something that cannot be destroyed by loss. That discovery is the essence of spiritual awakening. The unbearable becomes the crucible through which the false self burns away, revealing the light of consciousness beneath. Finding yourself within pain requires presence. It asks for silence, stillness, and courage. The temptation to run is strong, but running only delays the inevitable confrontation with the self. Presence allows you to observe the pain without being consumed by it. It allows you to witness your thoughts and emotions without identifying with them. When you can say, this pain is here, but it is not all of me, you create space between your awareness and your suffering. In that space, you begin to reclaim your power. Life's unbearable moments are not random, they are thresholds. They mark the boundary between who you have been and who you are meant to become. They demand that you pause, listen, and shed what no longer serves your growth. Every heartbreak, loss, or failure holds an invitation to return to your core, to rediscover your values, your resilience, and your capacity for love. Often, the version of you that emerges from pain is wiser than the one who entered it. The unbearable breaks you open, and in that opening, you find depth you never knew you had. The search for meaning becomes essential when life hurts. Meaning does not erase pain, but it gives pain a purpose. When you can look at your suffering and say, this is shaping me, it begins to lose its power to destroy you. You start to see that the unbearable is not punishment, but initiation, a necessary part of your becoming. Every experience, no matter how painful, carries within it the seed of transformation. The task is to nurture that seed instead of rejecting it. Finding yourself within pain also means embracing vulnerability. It is the willingness to feel without resistance, to cry without shame, to grieve without hiding. Vulnerability connects you to your humanity. It softens the heart that pain tries to harden. Through it, you begin to sense the quiet wisdom that lives beneath suffering, a wisdom that says, you can survive this and you can grow through this. Vulnerability turns unbearable moments into opportunities for connection with yourself, with others, and with life itself. When life feels unbearable, what you are truly confronting is the limit of your old identity. The discomfort is the friction between who you are and who you are meant to be. Growth feels like destruction because it dismantles the walls that once protected you. The very pain you wish to escape is the force shaping your rebirth. To find yourself in that process is to surrender to it, to trust that something meaningful is unfolding even when you cannot yet see it. The self that emerges from unbearable experiences carries a quiet strength. It no longer seeks validation, control, or certainty. It understands that peace is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of awareness. The unbearable teaches that nothing external can truly define or confine you. You begin to realize that within the chaos, there is stillness. Within the darkness, there is light. Within the pain, there is truth waiting to be found. To find yourself within unbearable moments is to stop escaping and start listening to the silence beneath the noise, to the wisdom beneath the wound, to the self beneath the suffering. It is to understand that every collapse carries within it the possibility of awakening, and that the unbearable is not the end, but the beginning of seeing who you truly are. Happiness is not the absence of suffering, but the courage to create meaning through it. We are often taught to view happiness and suffering as opposites, as though one cancels out the other. We chase happiness as if it is a destination free from pain, disappointment, or loss. Yet the truth is far more intricate. Happiness and suffering are intertwined, two threads woven through the same fabric of existence. It is through suffering that we discover depth, through pain that we learn compassion, and through endurance that we find purpose. Happiness does not emerge when suffering disappears. It emerges when we find the courage to face our suffering and transform it into something meaningful. To live is to suffer, not as a punishment, but as an inevitable part of growth. Every person, no matter how fortunate, will encounter loss, heartbreak, and struggle. We cannot escape this truth, but we can decide how we relate to it. When we resist suffering, it multiplies. When we deny it, it festers. But when we meet it with awareness and courage, it becomes the very ground on which we build resilience and wisdom. The question is not how to avoid pain, but how to use it as a teacher. The courage to create meaning through suffering begins with acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It means acknowledging what is real instead of pretending otherwise. It means looking directly at the pain you feel and saying, "This is part of my story." In that acceptance, a subtle shift occurs. The pain stops being an enemy and becomes a messenger. It begins to reveal what matters most, what needs healing, what requires release. Suffering often exposes the illusions we live by: the illusion of control, the illusion of permanence, the illusion that happiness is something that can be achieved by avoiding discomfort. When we stop fighting suffering and start learning from it, we begin to see that pain has its own kind of wisdom. It strips away what is false. It humbles the ego, softens pride, and reminds us of our shared humanity. It is often through our deepest wounds that we develop empathy for others. The person who has suffered understands the language of compassion. Through suffering, we gain not only endurance, but insight. the ability to see beyond the surface of life into its deeper meaning. Happiness that comes from avoidance is fragile. It depends on circumstances staying pleasant and predictable. But happiness that grows from meaning is unshakable because it is rooted in understanding, not in ease. When you find meaning in your pain, you are no longer its victim. You become its interpreter, its alchemist. You transform what once broke you into something that builds you. This transformation is not a single moment of realization. It is a process of inner work, reflection, patience, and courage. Meaning does not erase pain, it gives it direction. It turns suffering into growth, despair into awakening, endings into beginnings. It is what allows a person who has endured loss to help others heal, what allows someone who has fallen to rise with new purpose. Every hardship can become a seed of wisdom if we choose to nurture it. Creating meaning through suffering is not about glorifying pain, but about recognizing its potential to awaken the soul. It is about saying, if I must suffer, let it not be in vain. Let it teach me something true. To create meaning is an act of courage because it requires presence. It requires sitting with discomfort instead of numbing it, exploring it instead of escaping it. It means asking yourself difficult questions. What is this experience revealing about me? What is it teaching me about love, patience, forgiveness, or strength? These questions lead you back to yourself, to the part of you that cannot be broken even when everything else is. That unbreakable part, your awareness, your essence, is where true happiness lies. Suffering has a way of revealing the gap between who we are and who we are meant to be. It exposes the habits, fears, and attachments that limit us. When life becomes painful, it is often because something within us is trying to evolve, to shed what no longer fits. The courage to create meaning is the willingness to let this evolution happen even when it hurts. It is trusting that your struggle is not meaningless chaos, but a passage toward greater understanding. The most profound happiness often arises not after suffering ends, but in the midst of it, when we begin to see the light of awareness breaking through the cracks. There is a strange beauty in realizing that you can still feel gratitude, hope, or love even while in pain. That resilience is not denial. It is the soul's quiet declaration that meaning still exists. The ability to find joy amid suffering does not make you naive, it makes you awake. It means you have learned that the heart can break open, not just break apart. Courage is what bridges suffering and meaning. It takes courage to stay when you want to run, to feel when you want to numb, to believe when you want to give up. Courage allows you to move through suffering instead of around it. It helps you see that even in the darkest moments, there is something in you that remains untouched. The awareness that witnesses, endures, and learns. That awareness is your foundation, and from it, happiness begins to grow again. Creating meaning through suffering also transforms how we relate to others. When we realize that everyone carries invisible pain, we begin to treat people with greater kindness. We stop judging and start understanding. We see that suffering is the thread that connects us all. Shared pain becomes shared humanity. In that shared humanity, happiness becomes something collective, a quiet sense of belonging that arises from empathy and connection. To find happiness through meaning is to live with purpose. It is to let every experience, no matter how painful, shape you into a deeper version of yourself. It is to trust that suffering is not the opposite of joy, but the path that deepens it. When you have walked through darkness and still found a way to love, you begin to understand happiness not as a fleeting emotion, but as a state of inner peace. A peace born not from escaping life's pain, but from finding meaning within it. Ooh,